Howdy, y'all. It is the day after my first Supreme monologue. Hold on, I'm just going to blow my nose out of camera real quick. So, I'm doing a video right now because I got nothing else to do. I woke up early this morning, actually really early, and I hopped right on and I got in a great trade, phenomenal. If you guys know anything about trading, it was pretty cool. I got in a position with a 0.07% stop loss, which was very cool. And at about 8 a.m., I was probably trading at 7:30. At 8 a.m., my internet went out. And it's been out since. So I can't even see. I know the trade, I took a take profit on it and moved stop to entry. So I made a little bit, but I was up like 6R, which is just ridiculous. And I can't even see what the price is now. I know I got stopped at entry, but I can't even see what's going on or enter another position or anything. So I'm just dead in the water. And I've got, my service is so poor that I can't even watch a YouTube video or go on Wikipedia and take notes on this Middle Eastern report I'm doing. So I've got nothing to do. I'm just sitting here. Just going to do a workout, walk the property. And that's it. So I figured I'd hop on and, I don't know, talk about something. I've got nothing really to talk about. I guess I could show you guys my little trade station here. It's pretty cool. You'll like it. So these are my computer, or my monitors. This is my computer. Yeah, if you notice, I was streaming unlisted my live TA this morning because I don't know, I like being on video, I guess. It keeps me clean, keeps me honest. And this is my little trade station. It's pretty cool. These 4 monitors, if you put your head just in the right space, you get like this weird echo. The sound just goes and bounces right back into your ears. But anyway, I don't really have anything to talk about. I'm probably not even going to post this video if I'm being honest, but I figured I'd hop on. It's cool to have it is a good opportunity to be disconnected from the internet and by extension the world. And, you know, I don't even have anything. I can't even play Clash of Clans. I can't even waste my time if I wanted to, which is pretty nice. And I guess I'll talk about how connected I am, because it is so horrible. It's kind of, I wonder if egregious is the right word. It's so egregious how terminally online I am, and maybe my whole generation, that it's like I can't even do anything without the internet. And I have a couple of buddies of mine, coworkers, that are super prepper type. You know, they kind of see like a fall of the modern world coming. I don't know how much I entirely subscribe to that. They kind of believe that at some point in their life, or at least they're preparing for some huge world collapse, maybe not nuclear war, but attacks on our power grid in America. Power grid goes down, cellular goes down, you can't talk to anybody, you can't do anything. And I think there's some reports online that say something like, that would cause a total infrastructure collapse. And I want to say it was like the, what's the George Soros organization? I forget. The name escapes me, but I think they put out a report that said that society would descend into chaos in less than a week. So people would be killing each other and stealing and etc. And I think there's some truth to that. I think people are crazy, and in extreme fear, people will get violent. I think that's real. But that's why you have guns, right? That's why you have personal protection. And I'm not entirely confident in that. I think a lot of that's kind of like FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, or a propaganda. Because if you think about worldwide businesses or American businesses, especially electrical companies or grid providers, it's not in their best interest to let that last very long. It's actually in their best interest to have a functioning society where people can pay for their products. So I don't know if the whole world would descend into chaos, but it would certainly be a cool question of how the government continues to operate when you have no way of speaking with the people. You almost descend into like a pre-internet era, and beyond that, like pre-cable, pre-television. You're talking on ham radios, and I'm pretty worried about that. I mean, that's a valid fear, that the whole world falls apart and everybody's killing each other. And I guess the point is, everyone really needs to be extremely connected to their local community, is the prospect, or the solution to that, is that you're in a community that's very tight-knit, maybe homogenous, I'd say, is probably what would provide a more tight-knit community. Your local governments talk with the people. You go to the town hall, there's a big meeting, you say, what the hell are we going to do? You find local energy solutions, something like that. Because if you don't have a tight-knit local community, you're just dead in the water. You're waiting for the federal government to come in. And it's like the federal government can't even pay anybody for whatever they commission because everything's down. What are you going to pay them in cash? So it's a valid fear, but it really just means that you need to be in a place in America like the South that's extremely local, that's extremely culturally tight-knit, I think is the point. You probably in this situation don't want to be in like a city, even though there might be more resources, there's also more people. So if the flow of resources is not kept up, then you got nothing to do with anything. So, it's scary, and you got to be prepared. You got to have a bug out bag or something, which I do not have. You got to have pemmican, which is a dried meat that lasts for up to 20 years. You got to have resources. You got to have canned foods. And I pray to the Lord that something like that never happens, or if it does happen, that society doesn't completely collapse into anarchy. And I really don't think it would. Depends like let's say it's China or Russia doing some electrical grid attack or internet attack, and they just shut everything down. I'd predict it doesn't last for very long, just because functioning society and United States economies are based on being able to trade and being able to barter. But you could compare it to like a game like any of the Fallout games, which is post-nuclear, and that takes place 200 years in the future. But something maybe more, I don't know, all these apocalypse games. I love these zombie games. These are my favorite video games to play, is like PvZ, or player versus zombie. More so than like the player versus player, Call of Duty type, or player versus environment like Fallout. I really love these games. Actually, I can tell you exactly a name. I know one of them is Days Gone, is a great game. Dead Island, Dying Light 1 and 2 are freaking phenomenal. What fantastic games. So you have to ask yourself if it's going to turn into like a Far Cry situation. I guess that Far Cry is really like what it would, government's still somewhat intact, local governments are happening, factions arise. But like a true apocalypse scenario would be like Dying Light minus zombies. But I love those games. Most of them are melee games. So you don't really have guns, but they're just so fun. Especially the Dying Light series or Dead Island, where you're doing parkour and stuff too, which is kind of totally unrealistic, but it's really engaging for me. I like it a lot more than any other game style. But that's the fear, is that society crumbles, and I actually really like society. I criticize society a lot, and our politicians and our way of life. I think it's very, what would you say, disingenuous or degenerate, to use the double D's, but I really like functioning society, and I'd hate for that to happen. But every once in a while, if it only lasts a day, I'm excited to be disconnected from reality. It's kind of fun. I get to do something like this, and even here I still have electricity, so I can take a video on my phone. And I have a lot of hobbies that I do. Like I'm sure I'm going to rip the drum set a bit, and hopefully I can get an internet service and I can take some notes. I'd go do something gardening wise, but it's middle of winter, so I can't really put anything in the frozen ground. But really what I should be doing today, and I don't know, I just figured I'd hop on a call, I'd hop on the phone and do a little talk, but I should really be cleaning up my environment. It's pretty messy, it's pretty disorganized. And that's really not who I am. Your environment's kind of like a macrocosm. I believe the word is macrocosm as opposed to microcosm of you. So if you're a disoriented and disorganized person, your environment's going to be the same way. And I'm really not that person. I go into cycles. It's like I'll be extremely clean. I'll be so disorganized that I just chaos theory, great thing. Maybe I'll explain this to you guys. Is chaos theory. If you have stuff that you need to clean up, or say your room is all disorganized, which is chaos, right? The rough definition of chaos is like complete disarray. You have so many problems that it's hard to even tackle one of them because you got, 100 problems, which is like equivalent to a messy room. You got 100 different items all scattered about, completely unorganized. So chaos theory is that if you have 100 small problems, it's a lot harder to solve or organize than if you have one big problem. One big problem is easy to find a solution for because it's one thing, maybe split up into parts. But chaos theory and organizing is really cool because you just take everything in your room and say you put it on your bed in one big pile. So everything needs to find a place, but instead of having 1,000 things all over your room that you need to organize, it's just one big pile. And then you can look at everything and say, well, all of this stuff needs to go to a different place, needs to be put in storage. All this stuff can go in this drawer. This stuff can be put back out. It's just a great organizing tool. But that's pretty cool. Yeah, I really need to organize. So anyway, I'm a person that falls into disarray. More like disorganization accumulates. You put something down and you're doing other things, so it kind of just lives there for a while. Like I have a $100 bill here that's been sitting on my desk for days. and I really need to put it in my wallet. But I'm sure what I'm going to do is just clear out a little space in the middle of my floor here and put everything in the pile and figure out where it needs to go. And I need to reorganize my desk here. I've got like this L-shaped desk situation. This draft table is not mine, it's my father's. I'm just capitalizing on the chair in the area. But all of my drawers need to be reorganized. I've got stuff haphazardly left about. What I really need is a bookshelf, because right now the extent of my bookshelf is just a table with books piled on it. Here, I'll show you guys that actually. Yeah, a lot of books, and none of these are necessarily mine. If you see one that's disagreeable or one that you like even. You ever notice when you're drinking a cup of coffee, when you have a full cup, you take big sips or glugs. And as the coffee disappears, you start taking smaller and smaller sips because you don't want to go get a new cup. It's like, what's that in economics? Not economies of scale. Sunk cost? No, I don't know the exact definition, but it's a cool one. It's a cool little, cool idea. But yeah, so I just figured I'd do a video for no reason. Hopefully I can work on that Middle East war, 1948, Arab-Israeli war, for you guys. I really want to get that posted tomorrow, while it's all fresh in my mind, and it's really coming along nice. You know, it's great to take notes, because when you're monologuing, you can kind of do the same thing in your head. Like, go back to writing class or English class in high school where you're writing an essay. And you have your essay is fundamentally answering like a question, or you're explaining an idea. Like, you know, I guess the overall idea of this essay I'm writing is the 1948 Arab-Israeli War. And when you have that centered idea, you can explain it. First, you have your intro paragraph, then you have your body paragraphs, maybe 3 or 4. Then you have your conclusion, pictures, citations, all in there. Maybe you have different sections, right? Like you have 3 or 4 body paragraphs per main idea. And the reason I say this is because it's cool when you're monologuing. Your brain should really be oriented around that structure. So it's almost like an interview with yourself. You ask yourself a question, and then you go through, you do a little introduction or a restatement with your thesis as your intro to the response to the question. And then you list your main ideas, and then you write like a quick conclusion, or you say, quick conclusion, this is why I believe this. And then maybe you're asked to go deeper into a body paragraph, or, your question fundamentally on your thesis. But I guess that's really answered with your body paragraph. So you're always going to be questioned in some way on your explanation of the idea or the question. So writing is just so cool. I love writing. I love writing and then putting it in video form. The problem with monologuing is that, talking about this structure, if you don't have it perfectly envisioned in your mind, you're just going to go on tangents, or you're not going to explain it very properly. And that's why writing it is such a great way to lock in what you're trying to convey, be concise, exclude any things that don't really matter. And ultimately, the best part is that when you write, you kind of create more and more questions for yourself. Is like the coolest thing. So here, actually, I can bring it up because fortunately Obsidian is offline. But I'll just go through like a little what I'm working now on this essay. Let me go to my history tab, Middle East history, Arab-Israeli war. Okay, so, and this is like the start of a huge series I'm going to do on Middle Eastern conflicts. Probably going to be specifically centered around Israel, just because I think it's a good like launch pad type of thing. I feel like they have their hands in all wars. And then they're also the greatest ally of the United States. So you can get that narrative or that interpretation of United States policy or interest through looking at it through Israel. So, but I'm going to do the 1948 Arab-Israeli War, the first Arab-Israeli War, the Suez Crisis, the Six-Day War, the War of Attrition, Yom Kippur War, Lebanese Civil War, first, I believe that word's supposed to be Antifada, Gulf War, it's Antifada, Afghanistan War, Iraq War, Syrian Civil War, Yemen Civil War. These are all super interesting subjects about the Middle East. I'm a real history nerd sometimes. But just to give you like my table of contents on this upcoming essay and video I'm going to create on the essay is the preface. Why should you learn this? Which I'm not going to go into any of these points, but the preface, why learn this, the setup, what caused the war, what culminated to create it, the geography, which is really important. You have to know where everything's going on. And I mean, you can be as basic as looking at a map of the Middle East or get into crazy stuff like, and maybe along with that's like the locations of capitals and significant populations, towns, where resources are, etc. And then you can get a little more finite into like topography, where you're looking at mountains and stuff and how a war could unfold and military targets and stuff like that. I'm not going to go as deep into that. There's a great video by, I believe it's Leaders and Generals or Wars and Generals, something like that. And they do like a really cool recap of the military interactions of a war. So there's no need to go into that. You should just watch that video. Key players, both nations, because there's tons of nations that are a part of this war that subsequently are continuing to be at war with each other. And then figures and people, especially in the United States, even though like the United States, what would you call the United States interactions with the war, at least this one, are a little less present. It's more like Britain and France and the UN and the League of Nations. And then the war itself, how it happened, monumental things. And then outcomes and consequences, which is like really what set up for the next war. And it's just cool to be able to, those are all your main bullet points. If you can understand every point of those and explain it properly with your intro, body paragraphs, and conclusions of every one of those points, you get a really cool perspective of the whole shindig. So I'm really excited for it. I really love history. History is like one of my favorite things to study. At least like knowledge-wise. It's more of a hobby of like knowledge, whereas gardening per se or farming is more of a hobby of knowledge and then application. And maybe music, especially drumming, is more of a knowledge of sheet music, being able to read it, but then really muscle memory, like physical skill. You could say the same thing about sports. If you're playing soccer or football, you have team dynamics, field placement. I know nothing about sports, but then you also have physical ability, muscle memory, what would you call it? Dexterity. That's not really quite the word, but ball handling or something like that. Team coordination. It's like the bigger knowledge point. Team cohesion, which is like, in my opinion, the most important thing in sports. To go on a tangent, I was watching a game the other day, which was so funny. My buddy's like a phenomenal basketball player, at least around me, because I'm no good at any sport thing really. But he's phenomenal. Like, he can drain a three-pointer from anywhere on the court. He doesn't even need to be by the line. He's just, you got to be on him. And it was funny to see him playing against people that are actually good, but also the team that he was on was less cohesive than the other team. The other team had like really good teamwork, just superior, not ball handling, but passing, getting open for a shot, etc. But the game was so funny because it was literally like, he's Asian, but he was on a team of like mostly white guys, and they were wearing white jerseys. And the other team was 19 out of 20 black guys. I think there was one white guy in it, and they were wearing black jerseys. So it was really funny. It was like a microcosm of like whites versus blacks playing basketball, which is funny because like, white boy can't jump. Like they were, they did not have the same physical ability as the other team, nor team cohesion. So it was just a cool little microcosm. I wrote about it a little bit, but I don't really want to go into like the race talk just yet. I think there's way too much I don't know, and it's way too touchy of a subject for me to talk about this early, and as someone that doesn't have too much experience to color my whatever approach I'd be taking. Not that I even have an approach. It's just not something I'm really interested in. But it is something that is really important in the political sphere because, we do have multiple. The United States, the great thing, and one of the things I really admire about the United States is that we do have multiculturalism, right? So I was in the Czech Republic on my Europe trip. I was in Prague. I don't know if it's the Czech Republic anymore. It might just be Czech. But I was in Prague, which is like 99% white. I mean, talk about homogenous beyond belief. And it was cool there, but you can't really get Mexican food, Chinese food. There's no like cultural music. Like I love jazz. I don't know, the Japanese really have taken over jazz, funky jazz really recently. So I'm into some of that, which is interesting. But the lack of multiculturalism was cool, but it's not somewhere I want to be. I want to be able to go into a city and have like that full platter of whatever you want. Food-wise, music-wise, interaction-wise. I guess it doesn't really come out in like businesses you could go to beyond food, really. Maybe bars, you have like Irish pubs, etc. If we talk about consumption, but the overall culture of America, I really enjoy that it's multicultural. It's kind of one of my favorite things. So anyway, but in politics, I guess to loop back around to that point, it's pretty important to acknowledge the differences of people and the differences of races, and try to strive for a way where we can all come together as not maybe what our skin color is or where we're from, no matter how far back, but come together as Americans. And that is really why I'm an American nationalist, because I think first and foremost we should be for Christ, but second to that is for America, for our nation. And I really love this nation, and I really want to do service to this nation. And I was scanning all these slides of my grandfather, and he was actually, this hat that I'm wearing right now, he was in the Navy on the USS Midway, giant aircraft carrier. It's crazy to see the photos. You're really on you're standing on like a moving city building, like a skyscraper turned sideways. And there's no railings because you need an airstrip. So you're just on like a platform with nothing around you, and the photos he takes are so cool. And then also you're on a warship, So there's massive artillery, guns all over the place. Just really cool. He was a yeoman, so his job, I don't exactly know where on the hierarchy he was on the ship, but his job was that if the ship ever got hit or was in imminent fear of destruction, he wouldn't escape the ship. His job was to burn all the documents, was to destroy everything so that nothing could be recovered intel-wise. So he never saw combat, I believe. He must not have, because he was like the perfect man. Maybe a little not dangerous enough, but calm, knowledgeable, wise, funny. Maybe athletic. Huge hockey family of mine, apparently, and I barely know how to ice skate. But he was really like the perfect man of his era. And if he was colored by war, I can't imagine the person that would have made him. I can't imagine. Nobody should see war. It's just like, if you can solve a problem diplomatically, it's like I would take a large amount of risk to solve a problem diplomatically than militarily. It's awful. So war is awful. But I forget exactly why I went on this tangent. As a politician, war. I forget where I was going with this. Anyway, he was like the model American, right? And he loved all people for who they were. Didn't matter. He was just I was trying to go in the direction of service, because I said I love this nation so much, and I admire both his service in the military, although I don't want to take military action. Like, I don't want to join the military because I don't necessarily agree with what America does with its military. And some of them are justified, like maybe we, with the Monroe Doctrine, we actually do want control of our the Americas, all surrounding areas. We should be actually great allies with Canada and Mexico, and all of South America. But his service after he got back from the Navy was all in beautification of Morristown. And I think I've talked about this before. But he was a man that walked around his small city. It's a growing city, but it's a small city. And he'd take pictures. I'm sure I kept a few, but he'd take pictures of the litter and the trash all over the ground. There's a huge, the Morristown Green. It's a preserved area in the center of town, and there's just litter everywhere. Like it'd be hilarious, because there'd be I don't know why I just turned my hat backwards. I guess I'm filling space, but he'd walk around, there'd be like a trash can right there, completely empty, and just litter all over the place like crazy. So I'm not entirely sure if he started the Morristown beautification project, but I'm confident that he had a strong leadership role in it, where he commissioned Morristown. Morristown gave the foundation money, and they beautified all of Morristown. So they picked up all the litter. He was a big flower and flag guy. It's like half of the pictures that I threw out were pictures of the American flag on a pole somewhere, anywhere, and flowers. So they made these flower buckets, like pretty big, maybe 2 feet in diameter, 2 feet off the ground, maybe like 3 feet, and just packed with flowers. And you see it till this day. You walk around and there's flower baskets everywhere. And the green is pristine, like there's no garbage. And America has really lost that. America is kind of like filthy. I mean, take New York, for example. You walk around New York and there's just like mounds, piles of trash bags. usually split apart, all over the ground. It smells, it's gross. There's like, I don't know, there's not enough people hired to go pick up trash on a regular basis, so it just accumulates. And it's awful. It's awful, the disarray we've fallen into as America. And maybe this goes back to chaos theory. You just got to put all the garbage in a pile and figure out a solution for it, because now it's just disarray. You can't even solve the problem because there's so many problems. And I guess if you had to, I don't know, it's hard to say if there's really even like one defined thing you can do in America that would solve all of the problems, like the disarray of our cities, which I'm just going to define as like trash, garbage all over the place. The homeless problem, which parallel to that is the drug problem. The housing crisis, where everybody's a renter and rent keeps going through the roof. And I think now like the median age, I just heard on the FOMC meeting yesterday, of buying a house is 40. So the average age you are, well, median, let's just say average. On average, the first time you're buying a house in your life is at 40 years old. 40 years old? That's insane. 40 years old. My grandfather got back from, both of them, got back from the military, and they bought a property and bought a house by what, 22? They bought a property, removed all of the trees from it, and then built a house on the property. And I'm sure that came along with a mortgage. And I'm sure that the interest rates were probably similar to where they are today at like, what are we at, like 4%? I'd pull it up if I had internet, but I can't. Which is so funny because from 2000, I want to say it was like 2005 to 2011, give or take a couple of years, we had like a 0.25% interest, which is like free money. What do you want? You want a $500,000 loan for free? Like you want free money and you can pay us back over time with a locked in 0.25% interest? It's just insane. It's like, think of student loans, mortgages, business loans. If you're going to start a new business, you had free money. It's like you didn't need to rent. You could just buy a place and pay it back over time. But then, the 2008 financial crisis was because everybody was getting free money, and what they were doing with that free money, the collateral on the loans was worthless. So it was better for them to just default on the loan and give their, $100,000 property and house to the bank rather than paying off their $500,000 mortgage. Because, would you rather pay $500,000 now or anywhere, anytime, or just go bankrupt and give them your $100,000 house? So, and then the whole economy just disintegrated. But, so there's so many issues. Just to reiterate, garbage, homelessness problem, and drugs, housing crisis, cultural problems, right? We don't have social cohesion now. It's like we're in a constant war with each other. It's almost like a civil war. And this is what I really hate about Twitter. And I guess I like that it's free, mostly. I admire that it has freedom of speech, but people are just awful. It's like freedom of speech is great when everybody's a nice guy, but when everybody's just I'm not going to say that word, when everybody's just a dum-dum, you're just spewing really hate. And it sounds like I'm being a liberal right now, or a leftist. But it's really not a problem with free speech. It's a problem of the quality of the American character has just completely gone down the drain. And how do you bring that back? How do you make people good people again? And maybe that is the central answer to all of these problems that I've outlined in America right now, is that you need to change the people. It's like, and maybe you can do that through government, not to sound like a fascist right now, and like maybe in government you can kind of correct people and bring them back. I think the answer is probably going to be something like bring them back to Christianity en masse in America. But it's like, if you can't mandate Christianity, and I'm not really necessarily in favor of like a theocracy, a Christian theocracy in America. I think maybe like a more even-handed solution is just to have like as a prerequisite for politicians or congressmen, Senate, president, local leaders is to be Christian. But even that's like a colossal. That's a colossal. How do you even achieve that? If you are government, how do you even achieve that? How do you change government? And then if that even happens, does that change the people? So I think something like, it's like, what environment creates that? Is it prosperity? Does prosperity bring people closer to Christianity and make them better people because it's just less stress? You don't have to maybe go to work every day and kill yourself to, what would you say? Become a better person? Or is it like in extremely hard times made by weak men? In extremely hard times, you're tasked with finding a way out, and that way out is, being a better person. And both of those are kind of like iffy at best, because if you're in a hard spot, it's like, are you going to be a good person or are you going to be ruthless? And if you're in prosperity, are you going to be a good person or are you just going to be careless? I guess that's like the give and take on that spectrum. And it's almost as if that proves that those environments aren't really indicative of creating better people. More of like your early American people, like my grandfather. So it's hard to really target how you can change Americans to solve all these problems. It's kind of like, wow, I'm shaking right now. I don't know why. I'm stressed out or anxious about this conversation. Maybe because I'm at my intellectual limits, or in the same way my wisdom limits, my political limits. I'm at my logical conclusion right now for what I know and who I am. So I don't know the solutions to these problems yet, and I think there's some cool conversations that are going on how to solve this, but I think that is kind of like the key part of it. To solve all these problems, you really need to solve the problem of people and how to make people better people. And how do you make people better people? Maybe instead of answering this hard question, we could answer like a simpler question, which is like, okay, if you have a parent that's lost religiously, or an alcoholic, or just like an angry guy, how do you reform them? And it's not even like how do you reform them, like what you're doing. It's more like how do you help them reform themselves. It's kind of the larger picture. And I think the jury for me is out on that one. I think I've helped my family a lot. I think it's like, I've helped my family be better people. And I really just talk about my father and my mother here, and maybe my girlfriend. And I guess the answer, as best as I can describe it, is just to be a good person yourself. To help them with their issues, to talk them through it, to provide them with your time or resources to, identify and solve the problem of their own accord. But it's like, are you really going to change America by changing yourself? Is that microcosm significant? I don't know. I don't think so. I think you got to do a lot more than changing yourself. It's like a twofold solution we're talking about, right? You have to change yourself to be more aptly skilled, if I said that right, or better skilled to be able to help other people. So you need to grow yourself. But then there's like a skill in there that's correctly allowing other people to help themselves, which is, I guess, the better way to say it. Because you can't really define it as like helping other people, can you? Because it's like you can't do it for them. You can't think for them. You can't change their mind for them. They have to change their own mind. They have to change their own self. So it's something like lead by example. But I think there is something you can do politically or socially to do that en masse. And maybe it's just being that role model, being that person that people look up to for solutions. But that's a hard thing. You're talking about something that I would describe as impossible, darn near. I'm sorry. So it's tricky. But it was a pretty cool talk. This was a pretty cool talk with you guys. I am getting a lot better at monologuing. Still don't know if I'm saying and a lot. I mean, you can say Did I just say it? No. But I think I'm getting a little more confident with speaking. I think actually the daily videos have helped mostly with that. It's weird. It's like some days I just really don't want to do a video. And some days like today and yesterday, I just want to talk forever. And I don't even really know what I'm going to talk about, but I kind of just go from one thing to the next. I guess that's what monologuing is, right? But in the future, I want to be much more concise. I want to have like a question present, and I want to kind of try and answer the question or, provide some more targeted value. And that is really what I've always done in my job and in my life, is that the point of me dealing with other people or businesses is kind of like providing as much value as I can. That's actually how I got this job. Working for this hedge fund is because I was working for a different company when I was about 15, I think. Maybe I was 16, 17. Let's say I was 16, and I was working for a company called Crypto Fusion Bot, which was part of this Discord, and their whole business product was a website where you could connect to TradingView, which is our technical analysis program or software, or they're a company. They're an awesome company. You could connect your TradingView account to their account, which acted as the intermediary between TradingView and your trading account or whatever exchange, whether it be BitGet, Coinbase, Kraken, etc. I think we were using, I want to say it was Binance back then. I never used FTX. So it must have been Binance. I'm not sure. There's so many of them. Now I'm a huge BitGet guy. BitGet is amazing, phenomenal. Best exchange I have ever used. Also no KYC, which is nice for me. And then I do it through my fund that I work for. But anyway, so I work for this company called Crypto Fusion Bot. They were the intermediary between TradingView signals where you could set up like how you wanted to enter a trade. I'm looking for this trigger under these conditions. When the trade is entered, I want this trade management style, like whether it's just a simple stop loss and 3 take profits, or a trailing stop, or some more complex way of managing the trade, like moving your stop continually with market structure, or selling off partial orders, entering more of like a grid bot kind of style, etc. Any way you want to enter and then manage the trade. And I was doing financial programming for them because I was, it's crazy that I even was hired and paid by them because they were such a dysfunctional company. It was insane. It was like they were bringing in like $2 million a month in subscriptions, because the fee was like $400 a month, or maybe it was like a $2 million a year or something like that. And they were doing this all without any working product. So people were literally buying into this, and the promise, and they kind of swooned people, is because they kind of promised, actually with a company I work for now, who I'm not going to name, but this company I work with now has their own indicator set, their own technical analysis indicators, and they're really good, but they're not necessarily always profitable. But this intermediate company, Crypto Fusion Bot, CFB, promised the users that they would have like a free money. They promised them free money. They said, if you have an account with us, we will have like a copy trade feature where you'll be able to copy the trades of the Discord owner, who's a phenomenal trader, or this other company. And that was really the promise, where it was like, okay, well, $400 a month is justified if you're going to make me free money for whatever account size I have. Let's say I pay $400 and I have a $50,000 account, and that's making a 10% return. It's free money. So that was like the swindle. But I was programming for them, and I really wasn't good at programming in this language, which is my only language at the time. And now I'm completely on a tangent. I have no recollection of where I'm coming from. Oh, how I started working for this fund. So I was doing programming for them, providing value. Now I remember. I was doing programming for this company, and I was hit up by my now CEO, and he was asking me to do some programming. He was just asking if I could program some of this stuff for him, and I was like, yeah, my pleasure. It's great experience for me. I did a pro bono, and I kept doing that, and I made a couple of cool tools for them, and I even provided them with some of my own, which we still use to this day, actually. Some cool ones, like a cool CVD analysis indicator, which is kind of just, I'm not going to go into how that works, but I was doing pro bono work for them, and then I was upgraded from like an unpaid contractor to an unpaid employee, and now I'm an employee, so that's pretty cool. All these years later, I guess I was probably 17, because that was 4 years ago. And I can't even believe that I'm still working with these people and I'm still doing this. I thought when I was young, call me naive, and I still really believe this because I hold out hope. But I really hope that all of a sudden I'm just going to be drowning in money. And that's not how it works with trading. Trading is such a time-consuming, like the barrier, I talked about this last night, the barrier to entry is just enormous, right? You really do need 5 to 8 years of experience to even know what you're doing. It's like the first couple years are learning the basics, right? Why prices move, standard indicators, standard theories of the market, basic economics. Good risk management is probably the most important. Good risk management is like, if you take a trade, I'll share with you guys like the little matrix between your win rate and your risk to reward. So if you have a 50% win rate, so you win on a coin flip, right? That's your win rate. So you flip a coin, you either win or you lose. Heads you win, tails you lose. You can be a break-even trader if you're taking one-to-one trades, meaning you're risking 1 unit to make 1 unit. So if you win, let's say 33% of the time, that's your win rate. You win 33% of the time, you need to be taking 2-to-1 risk-to-reward setups. where if you lose 1 unit, and if you win 2 units. So like you can be a trader that only wins 10% of the time, but you need to have a 1 to 9 or a 1 to 10 risk reward strategy to break even. And then anything on top of that is flavor or something, that's all profit. So that's just a little bit about trading. But so your first 3 years are going to be learning the basics, and hopefully you learn that. A lot of people don't learn that for a long, long time. Like I really only locked that understanding of trading in the market in maybe 3 years ago, 2 years ago. But I've been trading for 6 years now. And I'm really only a break-even trader. My technical analysis is seemingly pretty phenomenal as a market structure trader. I know what I should expect. I know what my targets should be, and I know what my invalidation should be. So if you have targets and invalidations, that's really like your reward and your risk. Because your invalidations of the trade are what you would lose if you lose, and your targets are what you should win if you win, which is your risk to reward. So I'm really only a break-even trader, and I'm really pushing the needle from when I got back from Europe, because I practically took a 3-month hiatus, which is just awful to say, but it's so hard when you don't have a consistent schedule to wake up every morning and do the same thing and take notes and record data, because a lot of it is, when you're like a new trader, you really shouldn't be speculating, because you just don't have that edge. You need an edge. You need something that makes you more intelligent or more profitable than the guy next to you, which is like the 99%. So the trading journey is really figuring out your edge and then capitalizing on it. So I think I have phenomenal technical analysis skills. Like I know where price is going to go. I know what my invalidations are. I can reasonably predict, even though you're not really ever supposed to predict. You're supposed to take good risk to reward setups with a sufficient win rate that's repeatable. And when you're a new trader, a lot of people really try to, a lot of the educators, you could say, and most of them are scammers, by the way. So that's where you're going to spend your first 3 years, is with scammers, and you just have no idea what's going on because you're being completely misled. But a lot of the good teachers tell you really need like a well-defined system. When this happens, I take this trade no matter what. And there's no emotion involved, because emotion's a big thing. If you lose 4 trades in a row, you're like, do I even know what I'm doing? I just lost tons of money. What am I doing? Hopefully you didn't lose tons of money because you have good risk to reward setups. But sorry, I got an email. But you really need like a well-defined system at the start. And then when you get better and you feel the market, you are the market, you can speculate, because you see it all the time. You're at the charts 8 hours a day. Like eventually you kind of just have a grasp on what's going on. And I feel like you really need a strong structure to be able to speculate like that. You need something like market structure, which is a theory of making higher highs and higher lows when you're moving upwards, and lower lows and lower highs when you're moving downwards across time frames. So it's not like that easy. And then you have support. I really talked about this last night, but then you can speculate a little more. Like you can say, well, if you have this 1 minute break in structure, it's on a 15-minute pullback at a great resistance level. I'm talking for a short right now. I don't know why my mind works a little better in shorts rather than longs. I'm a bit of a gay bear, is what they call me, because I just want the world to burn so I can get some better long prices. This is really the point. But that is actually really lame, because the people that are losing money when price goes down is retail. Institutions can take short positions, no problem. So they're making money on the way down. But retail traders mostly can only take long positions. So they're only making money on the way up. So it is actually kind of lame to like be a short guy, be a guy looking for shorts all the time or be short inclined, because you are kind of hoping that retail traders lose all their money. And maybe you could say like they're going to lose their money anyway. It's not like up to me whether dumb people, which is 99% of people, are going to lose their money or not. And in crypto especially, the market is so scammy. It's really not like a matter of, there's just not enough liquidity at the moment in crypto. And this is different from something like Forex, where nations with billions of dollars are coming in and out of different currencies for deals or diplomatic reasons or whatever, or product purchasing with imports and exports, what have you. So there's just a whole lot more money sitting in these assets longer term, rather than in crypto. It's kind of much more speculative, much more volatile, much more like lower time frame driven, maybe you could say. And in that sense, the market makers, I guess I'm just talking about trading now, but the market makers are companies that partner with exchanges, and their job is to provide liquidity to people that want to open and close positions in either direction. So what that means is, if I want to buy right now and I want to get filled at a certain price, let's say I want to get filled at 100,000, you have like a bid and ask spread. And what the market maker does is they provide money on the other side of your position at any point. So without a market maker, you're looking to buy contracts or exchange contracts for money with any other Joe Schmo. And they might not necessarily be willing to sell or buy contracts to or from you at any given level. They might be, looking for $100 more or 1% more to make a better profit or whatever. So what the market maker does is they come in and provide you to buy or sell a position to them at any point in time, at any price. So what they do is they decrease spreads. Spreads are pretty much like, let's say you want to get in at $100,000 per contract. Let's say you click the buy button and you actually get filled at 101,000. So your trade is already down 1% just from clicking the button, because there was no one to sell that contract to you at 100K. There was only somebody to sell the contract to you at 101K. So you had to buy from them at that level, because you're doing a market order, and maybe limit orders are a little different. But so the market maker, because they do this and they provide liquidity to you at any given point in the market, so that the spread isn't huge and untradeable, because a 1% spread is like, maybe it's fine if you're taking like a super long-term multi-day play, but if you're trying to hold a couple contracts for like 4 hours or 5 minutes, it's impossible, because the 1% spread means that your risk to reward, if you took a 0.5% stop loss, your 0.5% stop loss compared to your entry just went from 0.5 difference to a 1.5 difference with that extra 1%. So if you're only targeting, 1% above you for a 2-to-1, right? 0.5 stop loss, 1% take profit. That's a 1 unit to 2 unit, a 2-to-1 trade. Now you're targeting, now your stop loss is 1.5% and your target is 0.5% away from you, because you got a horrible entry. So your risk to reward went from a 2-to-1 to like a 0.5 to 1. Like now you're risking 1 unit to make 0.5 units. It doesn't even make sense. So you need a market maker. But here's the catch-22 for having a market maker, is now that player is taking positions that are likely worthless, or, if everybody's buying, they're selling to those people, okay? And they could be severely underwater. So what they have to do is they have to manipulate price action. Literally, they have to manipulate price to come back, and they can make a profit on the positions that they act as the other side for. So when you have a super low liquidity market like crypto, these hedge funds, or these market makers, better said, are actually trying to screw you over at every corner. They're literally trying to make you lose money because that's how they make money. So it's a give and take, and it really just, if let's say right now, let's say like in a perfect world, 50% of people win and 50% of people lose, and that's how money moves from like the unknowledgeable to the knowledgeable. What market makers do are allow those transactions to happen better, but they also move the goalpost where like you really do need to be a top 1% trader to be able to be profitable, because you're constantly getting tricked. You're constantly getting you're literally tricked into losing money by an institution with way more money, opening way more contracts algorithmically, and that can also, they have enough money to manipulate price. So, this is why like during FOMC, or this is a big thing with Bitcoin, maybe a little bit less now because more liquidity is coming in, but in the old days, which I'm not even looking back that far, I'm only looking back 4 years, but in the old days, they literally wouldn't move price in a direction. Let's say they wanted to move price up, right? They wouldn't move price up until they had come down, stopped everybody with buy orders, because if you're buying contracts, you better have a stop loss, or your potential loss is your whole account. So if you buy here, you have all your stop losses, all these people have stop losses in here. They wouldn't move price up until they already stopped all those people out, forcing them to sell at a loss, and then they would pump price up. So for a while, it's like the best strategy were divergences, and they still are for sure, because divergences show you that this little intermediate stop out, this stop hunt, is maybe divergencing with another low. So you're making a lower low, but on something like momentum or volume, you're making a higher high, which is a divergence, which means more volume's coming in here than was here, or there's greater momentum here than there was here, which would incline you to be bullish. But the divergences were really the play, because you couldn't go anywhere without taking all the money from all the people that already had positions in. So you literally had to stop everybody out before you even went anywhere, because the books were just, the market maker was in so many losing shorts, because if all these people are buying here, the market maker is taking shorts, the market maker would have to drop price and make all those people sell at a loss, and then sell contracts back to them to move price up, which is, it makes sense. But I'm not mad at the market maker. The market maker allows me to scalp, or to even take profitable trades, because if I had a 1%, markets with like a 1% or even a 0.5 or a 0.2 spread are completely untradeable. You can't even. I took a trade this morning on BitGet. Okay, it was a Bitcoin short. I took it with a 0.07% stop loss, which means, okay, that if the spread was any larger than 0.05, 0.02, I would have just been immediately stopped out. The spread, I'm not exactly sure of the spread, but I think it's something like 0.025. So when I entered with that 0.07% stop loss, I was maybe underwater 0.025%, but it's negligible. Actually, I think it might be, I don't know what it is, but you can't even take a trade like that if you don't have a market maker. So I like the market maker, and I like the more volatile market movements, and I like maybe I don't like the stop outs or the stop hunts. Just this morning, that same short I was in, we went all the way down to the low of the range, came all the way back up to the high of the range, which was like, a 1% move, a 1% move down, and then a 1% move up, and then we moved 2% down. So first off, I was able to capitalize on like a 5 to 1, 10 to 1 move down. Then I got stopped out, and then I would have been able to capitalize on like a 20, 30 to 1 trade. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty interesting. Trading is a blast. And I guess I just made this video. The end of the trading thing, I enjoy to talk about it, lock some knowledge into me when I explain something, and that's all that these videos I make online are. Is that when you teach something, not that I'm necessarily teaching anybody, I'm kind of teaching myself. That's the point. Is that when you talk about something and you explain something and you go through those maybe those contradictions, or you answer those questions in your own mind, and when you write them down, if you just learn something, you don't learn it very well. If you learn something and you take notes on it, you learn it kind of well. If you learn something, take notes on it, and then explain it or teach it, you learn it really well. Like you really lock it into your I don't know which part of your brain, your neocortex, I'm not actually sure, but your neurons are making your neural pathways are strengthening, because you're essentially going over the information in learning, writing, and then speaking, 3 different ways. But the most in-depth, I think your neuro networks are strengthened the most when you explain and when you're challenged on those things. That's probably it's like maybe this is like 1 unit, the writing is 2 units, and the speaking or explaining is 3 units. So the speaking is half of it. The listening to it is like 1/6 of the total learning process. The writing is 2/6 of the learning process, and then the speaking is 3/6 or half of the learning process. So you got 1/6, 1/3, half. The speaking part is really important. And that's all what this YouTube channel is. The daily videos are just to keep me consistent and keep me thinking about it, and to have like some accountability, because the world is my accountability now. It's like I don't have an accountability partner. I have an accountability world. Anybody that's watching these videos, whether it's my parents or people 10 years in the future, when I inevitably gain traction and enter I become a politician or something, and people are more interested in what I'm saying. The daily videos make me comfortable with speaking. They keep me locked in with what I'm doing on the day-to-day. The monologues incredibly increase my speaking ability. I'm now, it's just like not being frightful to speak, public speaking. This isn't really public speaking. It's not like there's a group of people around me, but more so being able to organize subjects in my mind and then speak them out. And then my mouth is so dry right now. But then the reports like this war, and then writing about that and talking about that, that's really where you get into like not only your speaking ability, but your persuasion ability, there's another word I'm looking for. Persuasion is definitely an important part. Maybe that's the more important part. But you're creating a valuable conclusion and then explaining it, maybe convincing someone else of it. So that's really the workflow for me, both in why I chose to do this video format, and then also the workflow of how I'm going to be talking about subjects specifically. And I want to go into a lot of things. I really want to be a polymath. I really want to be someone that's, like a jack of all trades, but hopefully a master of all, not a master of none. It's kind of the point. Someone that, sorry, I'm saying you know a lot. Someone that is well versed in multiple subjects. And I think that is really, I don't like the jack of all trades, master of none thing, because that assumes that you're not really going in depth or gaining wisdom or more intense knowledge about a subject. It's kind of just like you learn the surface level stuff of a bunch of things, but I want to go deep in a lot of things. I want to be a pro farmer. I want to be a pro drummer or a pro producer. I want to be I have so many aspirations. We'll see which ones stick. I want to be a pro chemist. I like chemistry. I like cooking. Chemistry is more of an extension of cooking, I'd say, for me. I like maybe culinary chemistry is more of the way to say it. But making useful substances like an alcohol, right? Maybe this will be useful in the apocalypse. Making an alcohol, making an acid, food-based, maybe making, specific salts that are useful. Maybe making my own natural organic nicotine pouches because I love Zins. But chemistry is just another form of science, and I kind of love science. And I love building things. And the cool thing about chemistry is that the processes are practically invisible. I mean, if you're doing some, my voice is really feeling it after an hour. If you're doing some, it's like I need to speak more softly, but I'm a loud talker. I'm a guy that's just naturally loud. My late grandmother was very deaf. So if you wanted to talk to her, you had to really project your voice and speak loudly. So I have a very loud voice. I don't know if that's necessarily where that came from, maybe where it was cemented. But anyway, back on chemistry. Chemistry is so cool because the processes you're doing are invisible. If you're doing like I don't really know anything about chemistry. I'm kind of talking about something I don't know, but maybe a distillation. You don't actually know what's going on, like what's going on in the flask or whatever container you're using is like invisible. It's all theoretical. And that's, I guess, something that I really admire about chemistry. Different from like engineering, where it's very inventative. Engineering or mechanics, cars are very, you see all the parts, you understand what they do, how they interact with each other, and then create an outcome. So that's the point. But engineering, just the same. I'd love to get more into design and engineering in some form or fashion. Cooking, I mean, you cook every day for your whole entire life, hopefully just one time. You're not going to get good at cooking? What a waste. You have probably thousands of hours. Like let's say it takes 10,000 hours to master something. You're probably getting to like 5,000 hours of cooking. Like you're really coming, you're if not 10,000, you're cooking a lot. You could be maybe not Michelin star chef, but you could be an amazing chef. You could be an amazing cook because you're just spending so much time on it. And if you have to do it anyway, why make poor meals? Why not expand your knowledge in that category? And yeah, I mean, I have other hobbies of which are not really coming to mind. I like, physical combat sports like jiu-jitsu, and I really want to get into Muay Thai. And jiu-jitsu is really cool because it is such like an intellectual, it's probably more so intellectual than it is physical ability. It's probably like physical ability, muscle memory, intellectual knowledge, right? Like way up here as a level of importance. Because when you're in like the 3 standard well, I guess I don't exactly remember. I did this for a long time, but I don't exactly, you have mount, you have standing, and then the third one, which is, I forget, side control, mount. Oh, what is it called? Anyway, the jiu-jitsu is very, I'm struggling to find the word. It's very one thing to the next. If you're in one position, you could be able to know, you should know if you're like a black belt, you know the 20 next positions that you could get the guy in or you could be in. You know if you're in a defensive position, how to turn that into an offensive position. And let's say there's 20 different next step offensive move. It's step to step. If you're in mount, right, you can go to a side control. You can go to a collar choke. You can go to a, an arm lock. You could go to a wrist lock, an ankle lock, right? Those are all places you could go to from mount, and you have to decide through your skill, knowledge, and your understanding of the person that you're fighting where they'll be vulnerable. So it is really like a step-by-step sport where you identify a weakness and then you think and you say, well, if I'm in this position now, I'd say the highest probability of me submitting him or gaining points is going to be this next move. And then you have to practice that move and you have to have it down to pat. There's like microseconds of space in between these pros going from one move to the next, and they're perfect. Like if you're locked in here and you're trying to get your arm over here, it's like perfectly zero space wasted, zero way to be manipulated, getting to that next position of trapping a guy's arm or grabbing a, whatever you call this. So that's a really cool one. Muay Thai, just because it's likely for the same reason. It's a combat sport where, similar to jiu-jitsu, you're using your whole body. Like, I forget, it's like I think there's 5 different ties. Muay Thai is the whole one, but then you have, to put it in English, leg tie, arm tie, head tie, feet tie, elbow tie, that type of thing. So that's just another cool thing of using your entire body to subdue an opponent. I feel like those two really stick out to me as having something exceedingly useful. I guess that the point is that they're useful and that they're comprehensive. I'd say that's the point. They're comprehensive. And then, working out, I have so much face fat. I'd love to get rid of it. Hold a lot of fat in my back. I got a fat back. So, and I'm a tall, skinny guy. It's I really need to lock in and get physical. Not to be more attractive. I'd love to be more attractive. It's not really the point, though. I already have a girlfriend who I'm planning to marry if, nothing goes poorly. So it's really just physical ability for me. It's not really I'm trying to change how I look too much. I don't love this double chin I got going, but, camera orientation, right? That's why one of this camera at the top of my computer right here is at the top. Not that that's a great place to put your camera. I actually just don't really have anywhere else to put it that would make sense, but yeah, it catches my good side. I think this light over here is not necessarily great. You kind of want the light coming from the top. What am I talking about right now? What am I talking about? All right, I'm going to close it out. This is even longer, hour and 24 minutes. That was a pretty good monologue. I'm really surprised that I'm able to go from point to point here without really talking about or without really having to pause and think of what I need to talk about next. I can kind of just ramble. It is like a ramble. But it's exciting. It's very exciting. I really like it. I really love talking. Just because it's an extension of thoughts. I think I said that last night. What I'm interested to know is at what point, after how many hours of monologuing on video, I'm going to run out of things to talk about. Because we hit a lot of stuff today. We hit trading, market makers, the beginner trader's journey. We hit American problems of American society. What else did we hit? We just hit jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai, which I'm surprised I even talked about because I know like basically nothing about these subjects. I know like nothing about these subjects. It's kind of cool that I can talk about them, but it's kind of useless that I'm talking about them because I can't tell you guys anything. It's like I am really trying to just speak as a benchmark, but I don't know how long it's going to be until I run out of things to talk about. I don't know how long that's going to take. It's a cool idea. But my voice is killing me. I'm talking way too loud. I need to do like that, turn the gainer up and get that vocal fry going, like on NPR or something. I used to listen to NPR with my dad all the time in the car, and now it's like, some stuff is just unlistenable because it seems as though it's detached from reality at times. Maybe that's because I have my own personal reality. I don't really believe in personal truths or personal realities. I believe there is the truth and the reality, and we all kind of explain it. And then separate to that is like opinions and beliefs. But I like squirm when somebody says, "Oh, well, my personal truth." It's like, no, that's called an opinion. A personal truth is called an opinion. You just want to give it more weight, so you're using colorful language. Yeah, that's interesting. Anyway, so that's cool. Catch you guys later. I'm going to go about my day, see what I can do. I have no Wi-Fi. I presume I still have no Wi-Fi. But this was a good video to do anyway. So why not? Yeah, I still don't have any Wi-Fi, so I guess we will just see what happens. But see you guys later. Have a great day. Christ first, America first. And do something good for somebody else. I'm going to try and do that today. I don't know what made me think of that, but I think that's a good sign off. So, all right. See you guys.